Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on K2 Born exploring business model and staying with the entertainment sector. After Disney, we're going to sport. And this time, this is Real Madrid Club de Football, and we're going to see that they're moving from sport to entertainment. So how does it happen? First, we're going to evoke the story of the history of the club with more title of the 20th century that just won the 10th Champions League trophy in May. So this is something that is even more successful club, and we're going to see how have they managed to build this legacy. Okay, so we can see that it's a mix of current icon. Above all, you've got Cristiano Ronaldo, Golden Globe, Ramos, Iker Casillas, and Bale. And we can see at the back Pelé. And above all, this is something that if we want to insist on the fantastic legacy of this club, is you want to be part of the best club in the world. Well, it's pretty simple. You go where you've got the best star at all time. And I would say that it has been a while since this fantastic gesture of Zinedine Zidane that scored in the final of 2-2 versus Leverkusen. Take into consideration that this guy is right-handed and makes a perfect gesture of a left-handed. Personally, being left-handed is something I would never ever manage to do. So don't even think about doing it with my right foot. Okay, so here was the other stars in this team. Well, there were Roberto Carlos, Brazilian, Ronaldo, the unique one, David Beckham, and Figo. So if we move back in the past, what we can see is that you got even other legends. Well, Raúl, that used to be before, but at this time was already down. Juanito, el espíritu de Juanito, it just referred to when something looked impossible to manage, to refer to the Juanito Saul spirit, just to make something that seems impossible. So Juanito is a player of the 70s, end of 70s, beginning of the 80s. El Buitre, butragueño, la quinta del Buitre, fantastic player. Puskás, the best ever scorer in Europe, in Real Madrid, and obviously Di Stefano, the man thanks to which Real Madrid won 5 Champions League in a row. At this time, it was called La Ligue des Champions. Okay, so it's interesting to note in that sense that both the Champions League and Coupe du Monde were created by French guys. Okay, so what is in terms of business? What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the stage. Here we're talking about Santiago Bernabéu in the financial district of Madrid. And here how it look like internally. So here you would say, well, it's pretty obvious that you're thinking about this is not business. What's the point? So here, what is quite interesting to look at is that well, you've got when we're talking about sport, most of the time you say, well, there's only one focus. It can be more or less sport, or but in the last decade, there have been always more focus on business and just to say, okay, what can be done in order to avoid that it only depends on the ball enter in or not. So in that sense, what we've been doing with 2 colleagues, Case and Urrutia, is that we tried to posit Real Madrid and Football Club Barcelona path. Obviously, there's no man land when you no money and no sport result. A second aspect is, well, you've got flowers, but without the garden. which means that you got a title, but nothing, no financial background. It means it's a problem. On the other end, you got a garden, so in the future it should work, but in the present you don't have sport result, and even when you have money and titles. So how does it work for both teams? Well, if you take the consideration for Football Club Barcelona in the last year, it has been working like that. One competitive edge, so moving from no man's land to moment. With Guardiola, it's even moved up. Maybe I could have changed it a little bit to Evan, to flower without garden. Why do we insist on it? Because Finance Football Club Barcelona are not set in such a great situation, and even if the current management team makes huge transfer, it may imply too high risk in the future if there's no return on investment. It's entering into a vicious circle in terms of risk accumulation. Okay, and if we look at Real Madrid, because you know you've got a history of opposition between the two clubs. Okay, where is Real Madrid? Okay, let's make it work. So it was Evan at some point in 2002, and finally they don't manage to get some trophy until recently, whereas they're moving back to it. So they've been doing a fantastic job in order to earn some, to have a good income. Now it's tough business because they are acquiring stars that cost a huge amount of money, and they don't so much play as a team. So this is a big the problem. Even if with Ancelotti things have improved. So why is it so interesting to think about a comparison with Disney? Well, I'm going to explain it pretty quickly. When we're talking about sport, you've got different type of income. This income are stadium, TV broadcasting, and merchandising. Initially, it was only linked to the stadium. The bigger stadium, so you should have more money to acquire some players. Over time, TV became always more present, too much present according to some people, but it managed to diversify at least the finance of the club, and with the provision of let's say of always more financing issues in terms of worldwide competition. I'm referring to the money that the club could get from European tournament, and above all with the Champions League. The importance of having some fans out of Spain became always more attractive to Real Madrid. And this is not unique. On top of that, there was all the marketing income linked with merchandising, TV. Each club has its channel right now about some tunes, about some mobiles issues. It's really important to see that you've got lots of issues that have been possible thanks to the diversification of income. The problem, and there's always a problem when we're talking about club, is that we saw the income, and in that sense, if you want, when we're talking about the best club in the world, the best example when we speak about it, it's just the fact that Deloitte makes a ranking of the best club in the world only in terms of income. They don't refer to profit. What? They don't know. They don't refer to profit in the league. In Deloitte league, you've got only income. Why? Because basically the wages of the player are so high that they represent more than 50% of the club. Ferran Soriano, former managing director of Football Club Barcelona and current CEO of Manchester City, used to say that football was one of the last communist activity, in the sense that the worker gets a vast majority of the cake. Okay, so this is quite interesting to look at it. So at this point, they say, hey, here you got something that is quite interesting. Instead of considering a character gallery with Mickey, Winnie the Pooh, Snow White, and so on, well, why don't we consider that, just to consider as a current icon, Sergio Ramos, Ronaldo, Casillas, Benzema, Bale, and so on, that these are like characters, and they can go to the theme park, which is a stadium, or you can watch the goals that they score. Or why don't we think about, you can go to buy the shirt, you can enjoy the museum, and so on. So this is the reason why it makes a lot of sense. And they decided to copy Disney. And this is the reason why they're moving from value capture, where basically you've got here in the Disney process, you've got Mickey and Donald initially, then it has been substituted by the cartoon characters plus real full-fledged actors, such as Johnny Depp and Keira Knightley, and basically it works. And here's the issue: is just to say, hey, what can we do about it? Well, pretty simple. When we think about Real Madrid, the reason why it was evoked first, it was Zidanes and Pavones, because basically there was a global star, Zidane, Roberto Carlos, as we say, Figo, Ronaldo, and and David Beckham. And on the other hand, there was a Pavones, there was a Spanish guy, low profile, but there was necessary to combine with the top player. Finally, it didn't work out pretty well because the Pavones were not strong enough. This is the reason why they make a new mix of stars. On some end, you've got Spanish stars for Spanish fan, and on the other end, you've got worldwide star for the global fan. So in that sense, you've got Casillas and Ramos on one end, and CR7 and Bale on the other end. And it's even more, it's even better when you look at it, because Real Madrid decided to work with two countries where they've got borders. It means that you've got always French players at Real Madrid. Right now you've got Benzema and Varane, and they've got Portuguese players as well. And we can refer to CR7, we can refer to Pepe, we can refer to Coentrao. So you can see that there's a mix of players that can favor the identification to the current fan and to the global fan. How does the value capture happen? Well, basically, according to these issues, you've got the game, you go to the stadium, you go to merchandising, you enjoy the game, you've got IT products, a cell phone, you will go and if you live in the States or in China, you can enjoy from time to time the game, or you can say, well, I'm only interested in the pay-per-view games, and this is it. So this is quite interesting to look at it, because you can see that from 2005 to 2006, Real Madrid has been able to increase substantially its income or revenues, depending on which, if you want to talk in English or in US, in British English or in US English. And what is interesting here is that look at it in 2005 to 2006, almost 300 million revenues. And in 2012-2013, Real Madrid has multiplied its income by 60%, because we are above 500 millions. And take into consideration that during this period they haven't won any titles. You can imagine that in the upcoming years, thanks to the success of the Champions League, it should be definitely a fantastic year in terms of income. The risk Well, if you're interested in the club, how they look like, how it has changed, well, I'll let you go through it. But what has to be taken into consideration is that Real Madrid has been able to sustain it, and if we look at the type of income to which I was referring before, what happened? Well, you'll see that most of the time there is a specificity according to the country. So when we're talking about British team, normally, historically, they were extremely good in match day, and they double the size and so on. Now, because they were able far more recently to develop commercial issues, it has changed. But historically, when we were talking about the best club in Europe, the point was British club was good at match day. Italian club were extremely good at broadcasting. They're not going so much to the stadium. And German club were extremely good. They were the best in commercial. Because of commercial has become a key success factor, you can see that German team are moving up and Bayern Munich are moving up. You say, hey, but you didn't refer to Spanish team. No, Spanish team are a specific issue because it's, as Di Stefano used to say, it's you've got 2 giant and 18 bonsais in the Spanish Liga. Only on a really specific years, like it was the case last year in 2013-2014, we had and at last we've got the renewal Atletico Madrid that came in, and it's much more interesting. But you've got on the you got the major risk for these two institutions because they depend too much on global competition, and if they had some difficulties for 2-3 years, it could convert their financial situation could be a really tremendous problem. Why can we say that? We can say this because despite of the value of the assets that they have, be it in terms of player, be it in terms of stadium, be it in terms of reputation, you may know that there's a huge debt to Hacienda, to the fiscal issues. That is debt that is we're talking about several billion euros, and similar situation for we're talking globally about the Spanish clubs, and exactly the same situation with a huge debt as well with the social security, and European counterpart or competitors, if you want to say, they are fed up with the situation because they consider that you do not have equality of treatment. And this is the reason why the EU Commission has started to look at the situation of these two institutions, the Real Madrid and Football Club Barcelona, and it might mean a tremendous change of within the Spanish Liga that will affect indirectly of these two teams. If you look at the young top Spanish player, you would always more Spanish young players that are playing abroad. Just to give a few examples, Negredo, Navas are playing at Manchester City. You've got Cazorla and is playing at Arsenal. You've got they're always moving out of Spain, and Matas is in Manchester United. Torres, Azpilicueta are in Chelsea. So they cannot be retained in Spain, and this is a problem because in a long-term perspective, it may explain, for instance, the result of the Spanish squad in the World Cup, where they got eliminated pretty soon. Okay, but coming back to Real Madrid, what is fundamental to look at this is that first you got lots of similarities with between the two institutions. You can even say that, like in a financial institution, maybe they are playing just to say, hey, we are copying ourselves, without having an exact correlation between the two. It should be a strong audit of this club would be interesting without any doubt. So, what are we saying here at this point? First, when we're talking about Real Madrid, we're talking about the best institution in sport. Even if personally I've got more acquaintances with Football Club Barcelona in Spain than with Real Madrid, but it has to be acknowledged as the best club in the world is Real Madrid. My team is Brest in France. Okay, don't forget it. A small club, but this is my team. But when we are talking about this, the best team in football is Real Madrid. They've got a really strong positioning. You want to be part of the best club in the world, be a fan of Real Madrid, because we've got the top player, we've got more title, and so on. So it's really logic. It's really easy to follow it up. And it's even more amazing because they've managed to do it without winning so many titles since 2002. It's been 12 years without winning a major title at the European field. So how have they managed to do it? Well, they managed to do it because they were able to diversify their income. They were able to copy the business model of Disney, and this is the reason why they were able to grow really fast. Now they need to pay lots of attention, because if they stop thinking about the true value of sport, they may face lots of difficulties. Many people in Spain and worldwide had said that Florentino Perez had been extremely lucky to win the Champions League versus Atletico, because recent years have not been so successful from a sport level, and there was some voice criticizing the sport, the way through which sport was managed within this entity. From a financial point of view, it's great, but when we're talking about sport, pay lots of attention, because without sport result, this is the beginning of the end. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Have a nice day. Okay, to Born. Bye-bye.